Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure?
It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee?
I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it.
Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's good to see you. Had a great time last night. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on the Table Talk stream. But for now, it is good to have everyone here. It is good to see you on this Wednesday. Welcome to my home. Welcome to the office. Welcome to the morning grind. And we are going to be talking about DC-20, which is something we've been meaning to do for quite some time. And of course, it's now over $1.2 million on Kickstarter. And so the time has finally come. And by the way, so I was like, okay, I got to go get the alpha of this or whatever the latest release is. And so if you're looking or you haven't been over to the Kickstarter site, the alpha now is free on the Kickstarter page. There's a link on the Kickstarter page. And then the beta is going to be coming out, it said, after the Kickstarter concludes. So that's where we are. So I went ahead and downloaded the alpha stuff. So I'm sure a lot of people have already taken a look at this, but I have not. And of course, I have watched several. I don't know about a lot, but I've watched quite a few of the DC-20 videos of the Dungeon Coaches videos, and liked what I was hearing him talk about. It seems like we shared quite a few the same ideas regarding game design philosophy, which of course we've been talking about quite a bit over here as well. And I'm gonna be working on the Cultist RPG this afternoon, but I figured that I wasn't far enough along to dedicate another stream to it right now. So I'm gonna be working on it this afternoon, and then maybe that means next Sunday's stream will be Cultist RPG design. So let's see. What have we got here? Who have we got? Sable Phoenix is here. Good morning, Sable Phoenix. Good morning. Tomocrat is here. And Tomocrat says I'm backing it. So I'm interested in its setup. So Tomocrat is in. Sable Phoenix is already in on the Kickstarter. Micah is here. Good morning. Micah says I'm backer number 3 because Xfinity was slow to load one page. So Micah is totally there. Let's see who else. Yep. So I was posting around. So if you are here from the DC20, either the Kickstarter, I posted on the Kickstarter page, and then I joined the Discord server and I put a link on the Discord server. I wasn't apparently a part of the Discord server. So if you are in the DC20 Discord server, hopefully I put that in the right place. And thank you very much for being here this morning. And I appreciate anybody, especially who has already been through the rules and maybe even played some, can tell us more about this game and talk to us as we're doing the show this morning. So let's see. Hey, good morning, Charlie. Good morning. Okay, Charlie is also in on this. Good morning, BGD. Andrew is here. Okay, Mike is a huge Kickstarter backer. 1,087 Kickstarter backers. Good morning, Mike. Okay, all right. So good to see everybody. Let's see. Last night, we were on Table Talk. We had a fantastic on the Table Talk channel. I'll post a link to that in the chat right here. Table Talk channel, place for deep conversations in the Geekverse, and we were getting deep into Brianna's book, City of Reckoning. I've got it right here. So I've still got to keep reading this. We're gonna it's a mammoth book here. But if you want to check out what was going on with Brianna's book, it's on sale right now in Kindle form. And I'm going to keep reading it. Doug's going to keep reading it. And then we will have a second follow-up discussion on the City of Reckoning, maybe about a month or something like that, rather soon. We will do that. So that was a fantastic conversation that we had right here. And we've been posting clips as well. So I noticed that people were talking about wanting to talk about Star Trek, put the Star Trek 1, but over here, where's the live? Right over here. Yes, there we are. Brianna's fantasy novel, The City of Reckoning. We had a fantastic discussion about that. And by the way, this discussion with Cameron about AI and Hollywood, we talked about a ton of stuff. So I highly recommend, if you're looking for a live stream, come over to either one of those. And then, of course, I've been very pleased with the way that the relaunch of the Cultist has been going. We've been relaunching the Cultist. We now have 1,770 subscribers or something like that over there. So we're gaining every day. So the Cultists, if you're not familiar and you're new here, this is my show. That is a web series. That is a web series about modern day Lovecraftian cultists just trying to worship Cthulhu in a world full of people who don't understand. And season 1 is all of season 1, 10 episodes, about 5 to 8 minutes apiece, are all up on YouTube right now. And we're relaunching it. And we're doing an RPG based on it as well. So I'll put the link to the Cultists YouTube channel as well. So would love to have you over there. I've been very pleased with the response that I've been getting on the relaunch of the show. So that's the Cultist YouTube channel. So what else is going on? Not much at the moment. Like I said, the major obstacle is still getting the Cultist RPG done so we can bring the Cultist RPG to Kickstarter. All right. Hey, let's do a breathe and sip, and then we will get into this rules review, and we will see what DC20 is all about. So does everybody have their favorite beverage this morning? I do. Look at this. I got mine in the Witch's Brew mug this morning. So let's do a breathe and sip. This is the mental health portion of the show. 2 deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Deep inhales, complete exhales. Look, I got that right this time. And then we will take a sip of our favorite beverage. So here we go. Breathe and sip. Here we go. And sip. That was good this morning. That was good this morning. All right, let's go check out these rules. So, I mean, has everybody here read them except for me? Is that what's going on here? Well, I want to start by looking at, when we're looking at RPGs on stream, we've got kind of an order that we go in. And the first thing I'd want to do is take a look at the character sheet. We typically kind of take a look at the character sheet first to see what is going on here. So let's do that. So what is this all about? Sometimes taking a look at the character sheet at least gives us some kind of idea about what kind of game it's going to be. So I noticed that on the download for the 1.7, we've got a character sheet here. So what do we see? All right, player name, character name, class and subclass, ancestry and background. We've got level. We're working with levels here. We've got combat mastery. It tells me that's level divided by 2. I guess we'll find out what that means. We've got, looks like our stats, physical over here and mental. We've got might, agility, charisma, and intelligence. Okay, and looks like we're going to be building out, like we've got, oh, look, I can fill those in. This is the fillable character sheet. So we can have some kind of save associated with each one of these. And then we have a prime stat. Isn't it the case that we were talking about this when I was hearing the DC 20 talked about that one of these stats is going to be your prime stat, which is used quite a bit. I wasn't talking about like being the charismatic barbarian or something like that quite a bit. We've got stamina points, mana points, and hit points. So, okay, so mana points for magic. I like stamina points. That's interesting. I've not heard him talk about that. That actually seems like one of the things that when we're talking about revisions of Hero Quest years and years ago, I remember for a long time we had something like stamina points in there. And of course, that's something that's in Descent, right? There's stamina in Descent. There's difference between hit points, mana points, and stamina points. So I'm interested in that. As I've worked with game design that had those things in there quite a bit. So physical and mystical defense. What is that? PDR, MDR? I guess PDR, physical. Oh, physical DR, damage reduction. Yeah, I see that underneath here. So we've got damage reduction as well. Okay, I'm a big fan of damage reduction. I like things like DR because that's coming out of GURPS. I do like damage reduction. Okay, Micah says stamina for marshals, mana for casters, and the spell blade will use both. Okay, so stamina is a reserve that martial classes draw upon, just like casters draw upon mana. Okay. We've got combat action points. I know we're going to be using an action point system here, which I really like, and I'm interested in reading. I've heard it described, but I'm very interested in seeing it in print here. We've got exhaustion, death, trades, languages, currency, inventory, features. Okay, so that's what our general rundown on a character sheet looks like, so we can see, know what basically to expect there. Let me take this down. We will go over to the rules, like I said, which people here may have already read. But I got the DC 20 playtest rule book right here. All right, let's bring it up. Got it. Okay, so how long is this? This says it's it's 158 or 68 pages, I believe that says. So there's quite a bit in here. Okay, so DC, we're going to try to get into exactly how to play. We'll see how this is organized first using the table of contents, and then get to the sections about exactly how to play and how to use how to actually play the game, what the mechanics are for actually playing this game. So, all right, attributes and prime modifiers, skills, trades, and languages, mastery, checks and saves, action, attacks and defense, health points and death's door, damage, combat resources, actions and reactions, maneuvers, techniques, and spellcasting. Did I see? Okay, there is also in this download a monsters guide. Because, I was just noticing that I don't see there's Monsters Guide that's a separate PDF. I was noticing that we don't have character creation here. That could be something that's deliberately omitted here in this version of the rules. Because we typically skip over character creation anyway and try to get into exactly how this game actually works. If somebody has a recommendation for where to start, we can take it. Otherwise, okay, so I thought that if it starts with how to create a character, we'll just skip over that. So let's see. We got, we'll see what's in the welcome. But then I guess we will dive right into attributes and prime modifiers. Maybe we should go in order for this one. We got language and stuff. We go over to mastery or something. Let's do that. So let's go down to just see what's with the welcome. All right. Note from the creator. First off, I just want to say thank you to anyone who has shown an interest in DC-20. It was scary to make the jump to publishing my own game, but the support has been mind-blowing. Everything from watching the DC-20 videos, supporting the project on Patreon, and backing the project on Kickstarter has brought this game to life. I've been working on DC-20 for years, and I wanted to make a game system that was simple for new players to pick up, even for someone who has never played tabletop RPGs, but also has enough depth for experienced players. I want the rules to be intuitive as well and easy to remember, the combat to be engaging, the dynamic with a focus around teamwork, and the overall game to be fun and epic. I truly feel we did all of these things, and I can't wait for the community to respond. Okay, all right. So let's see what the attributes and prime modifiers are here. Okay, so Micah says, I'd recommend attributes and prime modifiers, then down to action points. Okay, all right. So attributes, there are 4 attributes in DC-20 that represent your physical and mental abilities. Might and agility go to physical, and then intelligence and charisma go to mental. Each attribute has a value that ranges from -2 to 7 for most creatures. Now, we've talked a lot about like what's the optimal number of attributes when we're talking about game design. And we've talked about 4 or 5. How many did I end up with? Maybe 5. But we tended to like a shorter list of attributes like we've got here. So each attribute has a value that ranges from -2 to +7, which measures your aptitude with that attribute. Okay, and so we're adding that number to a D20 roll. So it says if you have an agility of +3, you'd add +3 to any D20 roll that uses agility. So rolling a D20, which is probably to be expected here. Okay, it says might. Okay, physical health, strength, and endurance. If you want to roleplay a PC that's the go-to for being the strong one and overpowering your enemies, then might is for you. Agility represents your avoidance, dexterity, and finesse. If you want to roleplay a PC that's nimble, light on their feet, and good with their hands, then agility is for you. Charisma, charm, presence, and force of will. If you want to roleplay the face of the party and have good people skills, then charisma is for you. Intelligence. If you want to roleplay a PC that's the smartest person in the room and knows things, then intelligence is for you. So how do we get your PC's attributes? Get your PC's attributes from one of the following methods and assign the values to each of these 4 attributes. Has anybody actually played this yet? I mean, has somebody actually used this alpha to actually play in a game? Do we have anybody here who has actually been playing in a DC-20 game? So the standard array, it says, you start with the standard array of 3, 1, 0, and -2. Okay, you start with an array of 3, 1, 0, and -2 and assign each value to an attribute of your choice. Then you gain 2 additional attribute points to increase whichever attributes you want up to the attribute limit, which is 3. Okay, yeah, 3, 1, 0, -2, and then 2 to adjust. Okay, that's the standard way. Charlie says that 4-point action system is sweet. It'll be page 39 for the action points prior to the chapter on actions, but the entire combat resources chapter is valuable in and out of combat. Okay. Oh. Hey, let's go ahead and give out some channel memberships. I think I can do that over here. I got to be on my YouTube account. Well, Okay, let's give out 5. If you're here, this seems like a good day to give out 5 memberships. So if you're here, this is, of course, I don't have control over who this goes to, but they just go out according to however YouTube's algorithm says who should get a gift. So let's gift 5 memberships now. Let's just see who gets them because this is fun. Let's gift 5 now. Who gets them? The button has been pressed. Okay, let's see. Patrick Theophan Barnes was gifted a membership. Thor KC, Inner Light, Barney Fraggles. I recognize some of these names. And Cyril Bodnar was gifted a membership. So this is fantastic. All right, so welcome, everybody. Yeah, Inner Light finally got one. Okay, okay, you can do point buy as well. You start with -2 in all of your attributes, then gain 12 attribute points to increase whichever attributes you want, up to the limit of 3. DC tip, your prime modifier, see later in this chapter, comes from your highest attribute, so it's a good idea to make sure that you get in at least 3, or that you get a 3 in at least one of your attributes. Prime modifier comes from your highest, or we got a roll method, okay. Prime modifier sidebar. The prime modifier allows you to create the kind of character you truly want to play without negatively impacting their combat prowess. Since your prime modifier will be used to swing weapons and cast spells, this allows you to choose which attribute you want to be the highest without feeling forced into picking a specific one. An intelligent or charismatic barbarian may not have as much health or be able to grapple or lift as much as a might barbarian, but their ability to wield a weapon is the same. It's up to you whether or not you want to roleplay the source of which attribute your prime modifier comes from in combat or not. You could describe your intelligent barbarian being a tactical mastermind on the battlefield, or your charismatic barbarian as a fiery, confident leader, or you can be a mindless rage monster in combat if you want and just smash things. This is an opportunity to create the PC that you want. Your highest attribute at level 1 will be 3. So no matter which attribute you choose as the highest, your prime modifier will be 3. Okay, so our attributes are limited by level. It was just saying that at level 1, it's 3. At level 5, it's 4. You can't increase your attribute through past that limit. As your player character levels up, they will regularly gain more attribute points to increase their abilities. PCs gain +1 attribute points at levels 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, and 10. You'll get points from the levels 11 and higher as well, it says. I was wondering if when I read that, I was like, oh, so we only go into level 10? Which we've seen quite a bit now. Like, do we really need 20 levels? We'll see how many levels we've got here. But we've talked about that. Do we really need 20 of those? Maybe not. Hey, good morning, Zero the Blade. Good to see you. No, we're kind of just getting started here. So your prime modifier represents your overall experience and prowess as an adventurer. Use your prime modifier as the primary bonus you add to checks involving attacking, casting a spell, or awareness of dangers around you. Your prime modifier is commonly associated with the following: attack checks made to attack with a weapon or unarmed strike, spell checks made to cast spells or use supernatural abilities, save DCs, the difficulty of resisting effects you impose on other creatures, awareness checks, your ability to perceive and detect things around you. DC tip: just because the barbarian in the group has the high charisma instead of might doesn't mean he's worse at swinging a sword because of it. How do we feel about this? Going to 10 for main levels, higher for prestige. Okay. So we got levels 1 to 10 or core levels, and then prestige levels beyond that. So what are we thinking about with regard to the idea of the prime attribute? Because we've looked at some games. Which game was it where it really dealt with, well, now the warrior is the warrior. So that's the person who's good at combat. The wizard has got to have their completely separate niche. The thief and the and the different classes that we've got here. This is clearly going in a different direction. because some games like D&D, will have all of them, their attack powers increase at different rates as they level up, right? AD&D was famous for the level 1 fighter and the level 1 wizard both fighting the same way. They'd have a THAC0 of 20, right? They had the same attack ability. So this is kind of going into that, but the thing is the fighter was going to increase his attack ability every level, whereas the wizard was not. This is kind of going in that kind of direction that, okay, everybody's got this prime value right here. We will see. So the value of your prime modifier is always equal to the value of your highest attribute. If your highest attribute changes, your prime modifier derives its value from the value of the new highest attribute. Your prime modifier is not an attribute, nor is it considered the attribute that it derives its value from. Okay, so prime modifier, not an attribute, and nor is it considered the attribute that it derives its value from. If your might is the highest attribute, then your prime modifier derives its value from the value of your might. If your might is 3, then your prime modifier is 3. If an effect grants you an advantage on might checks, it does not also grant you advantage on checks that uses your prime modifier. Unless the effect otherwise says so. Okay, well, that's important to know. Micah says, not the direction I'm going with for the FAR-ED system, but DC 20 did definitely get my attention for how versatile it is, allowing playing your chosen role. Okay, we got skills, trades, and languages next. Let's go past that. We can come back to if we need to. Intelligence, or have time. Charisma, influence, trade, artistry, theater, crafting, jewelry. Subterfuge, languages. So how is he handling languages? Let's find this out. Oh, there isn't a whole lot here. This is just a list of languages. Okay. So not a lot of information on like if you got to choose these in advance or what have you got to do. Not sure yet. Okay. Mastery. This looks like a lot like novice, adept, expert, master, grandmaster. This looks a lot like what we were doing with Faded Edge. So let's see what he's doing here with mastery. Oh, DM Steve-O says languages are handles in the mastery system. Or handled. Languages are handled in the mastery system. Okay, then let's take a look at mastery right here. Mastery represents your level of competence within different categories. When you have mastery with something, such as a skill, trait, or language, you gain certain bonuses to actions that use mastery. Conversely, when you lack mastery with something, you may suffer certain penalties, such as adding no bonuses to these roles. So there are several types of mastery. Skill mastery, your mastery with certain skill sets such as strength, awareness, and investigation. These are skills used to interact with the environment and creatures that inhabit it. Trade mastery, your mastery with certain professions such as blacksmithing, leatherworking, and artistry. These are trades used to craft goods and provide services. Language mastery, your fluency in certain languages. In combat mastery, your prowess on the battlefield, attack, defenses, and saves. We were using this a ladder, something like that for, of course, we were calling them like proficiency in a certain skill, right? Instead of having an infinite number of levels, like I think some kind of level like this is like 5 different levels. We'll see how this works out, but this seems pretty good. Like I said, when I was watching some of his videos, I was like, yeah, okay, we've got a similar philosophy on game design, in some things at least. You can gain mastery from your class features, subclass features, ancestry traits, or talents. You will have opportunities at character creation and when your PC levels up to select a variety of options to gain these masteries. Okay, skill mastery, proficiency with a skill. There are several skill level mastery levels ranging from novice to grandmaster. Each increasing level of skill mastery grants bonuses to the check skills which you have mastery. Okay, so this is a bonus to a D20. Yeah, right. Okay, so as example right here, if you have 2 skill mastery levels in the athletic skill, you are an adept, and add +4 bonus to any athletics check you make. See checks and saves for more information. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Skill mastery limit. You can spend skill points to gain skill mastery up to your skill limit. Your skill mastery limit starts as novice and increases based on your character level shown below. So you're starting at level 1. It's a novice. Now, and then character level 20. Okay, so we do have character level 20. So that's what Micah was just talking about. So we do go higher than that. At level 20, you can be a grandmaster. So this is tying your mastery of certain subjects into character levels. That makes me wonder, how easy is it to create a character that's at a different level other than 1? As I talk about that, we've talked about that on this show. Because, okay, so here, like, what if, like, so it depends on what the philosophy of this game is, right? Because if it's, D&D, okay, the idea there is often that you're going to start with a character that is not very experienced. You're going to start down at, and so novice makes sense. And then you got to play quite a bit in order to level up your character. But what if I just want to play characters who are already grandmasters in a certain skill? Can I do that? And how easy is it to just sit down and create a level 15 character? I'd be interested to know that too, because I kind of like both of those things to happen. Like if it's going to be the case that you're like, how easy is it to just build a more competent character from the beginning? If you're playing a one shot, hey, everybody sit down or make a character. Now, in those kinds of situations, I would often have pre-made characters, but even if the game master is going to be pre-making characters for a one shot, but they're going to be level 15, how fast is that? How easy is that? I don't know. I'd want it to be. Hey, Bacon. Hey, James. Good to see you. Hey, everybody, be sure to go and subscribe to James' channel, Bacon Gaming, which may change, but go over there and subscribe to Bacon Gaming. I have not gotten to watch the video on what is art yet, but there's videos. James is posting videos over there. Let's see. If a PC has a skill mastery limit of adept, they can allocate up to 2 skill points in a single skill, such as the awareness skill. If the PC has additional skill points to allocate, they cannot allocate them in the awareness skill until their skill mastery limit increases to expert or higher. A PC can exceed their skill mastery limit by one level each time they gain the expertise feature to a maximum skill mastery level of 8. Gaining skill mastery, I think we'll just kind of skip through some of this. Trade mastery limits. Lacking trade mastery. Okay, here's language mastery. Language mastery grants you levels of proficiency speaking different languages. Okay, so we're going kind of old school here on different levels of the language, right? Let's see. Mike M says, I'm curious when we get to combat what the average number of hits it takes to down an average creature. I don't know. We will find out. DM Stevo says the alpha only goes to level 2, but I think DC's philosophy is that even level 1 PCs are pretty epic. Rule of Cool says, from what I've gathered, it's a 5e PF2E Heartbreaker. What exactly does that mean? I mean, Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So it's a 5e Pathfinder 2nd Edition Heartbreaker. Okay, so language mastery represents your fluency in languages. There are only 2 language level masteries, limited and fluent. Okay, so we don't have 5 like in MERP. See languages for more information on different languages. Mastery level 0, none. You don't know the language. 1, limited. You can read, write, or speak the language, but you must make a language check to do so. Fluent, you can read, write, and speak the language fluently. Okay, all right. So basically, you cannot read. You may have to take a test to do something with the language, and then, okay, you just can't. The tip says, there is more of a progression to learning a language, and there are more subtle interactions that happen both from a role-playing standpoint and the mechanics standpoint. Hey, I'm going to need something else to drink here. Oh, okay. Sable is telling me this. A fantasy heartbreaker, this is the first time I believe this term has come up on this channel, is a term that comes from late in the TSR days of D&D when there were dozens of D&D clones that typically just altered a few mechanics, and the authors were sure would unthrone D&D from the top of the heap. They never did, of course, hence the term heartbreaker. Oh, heartbreaker for the creator. A fantasy heartbreaker is a term from the late days of TSR when there were tons of D&D clones that typically altered just a few mechanics, and authors were sure they were going to unthrone D&D from the heap. I see. Thank you, Sable. Hey, I'm gonna grab something to drink here. Let's go. Let's Yeti hug break, everybody. Yeti hug break. Oh, it's time for a Yeti hug break. Yeti hug break. Yeti hug break. Everybody go hug yo Yeti and show yo Yeti some love. All right, I am refilled. Everybody hug their Yeti. All right, everybody hug their Yeti. Hey, Trey. Good to see you. Trey reads all of the RPGs. He's been a major contributor to the channel, and is really looking forward to DC 20. Mike says, I always understood Heartbreaker as making a version of the game that you wish a game was. Does that mean we're going to be making one here on this channel? I don't know. Okay, we'll see. Okay, so language mastery. Okay, combat mastery. Here's combat mastery. We should probably pay attention to this. Combat mastery grants you a bonus to combat statistics such as your save DC, physical defense, mystical defense, attack checks, and spell checks. Combat mastery is directly tied to your character's experience and is the only mastery that increases automatically as you level up. This allows combat mastery to provide a scaling increase in a character's combat abilities over time. Oh yeah, we saw on the character sheet, right, that combat mastery is level divided by 2. So we've got that right here. Combat mastery list. You can gain combat mastery with the following categories: attack checks, unarmed strike and weapons, spell casting checks, spell casting, physical defense, unarmored, light armor, heavy armor, shield, mystical defense, attribute saves, might, agility, charisma, etc. You have combat mastery with attack checks, spell checks, defense, physical defense. You have combat mastery with attack checks, spell checks, physical defense, mystical defense, and your save DC. You can gain combat mastery with armor, heavier light, shields, and saves from your background and class, and possibly your ancestry. So background mastery, your background grants you mastery with 2 levels of your choice. Class mastery. All classes grant mastery with light weapons and light armor. Some classes grant mastery with light shields, while other classes grant mastery with all weapons, armor, and shields. Okay, we've got ancestor mastery as well, talent mastery. Here's a list of what happens when you attempt to do something when you do not have combat mastery in a category. 1 is spell casting. When you make a spell check, you don't add your combat mastery to the check. Weapons, shields, armor, saves. Okay. When wielding a shield in which you lack mastery, you have disadvantage on all attack checks and spell checks. When wearing armor in which you lack mastery, your action points are reduced by 2. Checks and saves. Let's take a quick stop by this, because checks are a major way how we play a game, right? The character can, in fact, we should drop it. I just saw a note about the Discord server. If you're here and you'd like to join the Ravenkeep Discord server, I should put a link to the Ravenkeep Discord server. I will be in there all afternoon. I noticed I've got some things to write, but as I'm sitting here to respond to, and as I'm working, I'll be putting out what's going on in the Discord server. Ravenkeep Discord server. Right there. Would love to have you. So types of saves, we've got might saves. No, that's types of saves. Types of checks. Flat attribute check. When a character attempts to perform an activity that doesn't benefit from mastery, they can make a certain type of flat attribute check, just as a flat might check to lift a very object. So just such as a flat might check to lift a very heavy object, or a flat intelligence check to remember a conversation they once had. Attack checks. When a creature attempts to hit a target with an unarmed strike or weapon, they make an attack check to determine if their attack hits the target. Spell checks, skill checks, trade checks, language checks. Types of saves: might saves, agility saves, charisma saves, and intelligence saves. Flat attribute check. When a creature performs a task that doesn't benefit from mastery, then it makes a flat attribute check: might, agility, charisma, or intelligence. To make a flat attribute check, roll a d20 and the associated attribute to the result. So d20 plus your attribute. Basic kind of task resolution structure here. Let's see. D20 plus your attribute, which we've talked a lot about the relationship between attributes and the D20 rolls, haven't we, on this channel? And all of the math behind that. Attack checks. Attack check formula is DC 20 plus prime modifier plus combat mastery. Example: a 4th level barbarian's highest attribute is 3, prime modifier, and their combat mastery is 2, 1/2 its level. When the barbarian makes an attack check, they roll a d20 and add 5. 2 plus 3. If they roll a 10 on the d20, the result of the attack check is 15. DC tip. Attack checks are most often used when making martial attacks. Spell checks are D20 plus your prime modifier plus your combat mastery. Okay, so that's important for spell casting as well. So a level 6 wizard's highest attribute is 4, prime modifier, and has a combat mastery of 3, 1/2 its level. When the wizard makes a spell check, they roll a d20 and add 7. If they roll a 10 on a d20, their result is 17. Skill checks is d20 plus attribute plus skill mastery. So a level 4 ranger's agility attribute is 3, and their skill mastery in stealth is novice. When the ranger makes a stealth check to avoid being detected by another creature, they roll d20 and add 5. I don't know. Rule of Cool says, I wonder how much of a dump stat is charisma here. We only have 4. We only have 4 attributes. So surely they are all useful. You would think if you're limiting the number of attributes, then you would want to be sure they are all useful. And of course, if you want to be the charisma person, that doesn't hurt your combat ability, right? Which is what this is all about, right? Check categories: passive skills. Passive skill is 8 plus all bonuses. When a character, this is saves. When a character is subjected to an effect, they make an attribute save to determine whether or not they're able to resist the effect. The attribute used to make the save is determined by the GM. So D20 plus attribute plus combat mastery, if applicable. Dynamic saves, dynamic attack saves, advantage, disadvantage. Okay. When a creature has advantage on a save or check, they roll 2d20 and take the highest number rolled across both dice. If the creature has disadvantage instead, it takes the lowest number. Okay, pretty basic there. Stacking advantage or disadvantage. Sometimes a character might have multiple sources of advantage or disadvantage on a single check. Advantage X. If a creature has multiple instances of advantage on a save or check, it has advantage X, where X represents the number of additional dice the creatures roll when making the check or save. The creature rolls 1 additional d20 for each advantage it has on the check or save and takes the highest number across all dice. Disadvantage the other way. Advantage 1 and disadvantage 1 are the same thing as a regular advantage and disadvantage. When rolling a d20, make a check or save. The 1 just represents the additional d20 you're rolling, which is what happens with a regular advantage and disadvantage. Advantage and disadvantage cancel each other out. Okay. Gaining advantage and disadvantage on checks made against the other creatures is very common. Sometimes you might have to make a check against a group of creatures where you have advantage or disadvantage on the check against some of the targets, but not all of them. When this happens, follow the steps below. Gaining advantage or disadvantage on checks made against other creatures are very common. Sometimes you might have to make a check against a group of creatures where you have advantage or disadvantage on the check against some targets, but not all of them. Okay, I understand now. Make a check against all targets you don't have advantage or disadvantage against by rolling a single d20 and adding all relevant bonuses you have on the check against the targets. For additional targets you have advantage or disadvantage, roll a second and compare it to the first d20 you already rolled. For all targets that have advantage against, use that. Okay, let's use an example here. A wizard targets 3 creatures with a fireball spell. It doesn't have advantage against its first target, rolls d20, has advantage against the second target, rolls 2d20, and advantage 2 against the third target, rolls 3d20. The wizard also rolls d20 and uses it to determine the outcome of its check against the first target. Then it rolls another d20 and compares it to the first d20 to determine the outcome of the spell against the second target. Then it rolls the other d20 and compares it to the first 2 d20s to determine the outcome against the third target. Okay, I see what's going on there. During combat, each time a creature makes the same check before the end of its turn, they suffer stacking disadvantage on that type of check, such as a specific flat attribute check. Flat might, flat agility, flat charisma, flat intelligence. Attack checks, spell checks, and specific skill checks, and looking for trade checks. This penalty only applies to checks made during the creature's turn and doesn't apply to reactions taken on other creatures' turn unless otherwise stated. So if a creature casts a spell by making a spell check, its first attempt would be a normal roll, but subsequent spells would have stacking disadvantage. The multiple check penalty does not apply outside of combat. This is applying until before the end of the turn. This is end of the turn. During combat, each time a creature makes the same check, before they end of the turn, they suffer stacking disadvantages on that type of check. That seems to be important too. Trey says, I have a feeling, based on the info I've seen, the GM screen should be compact. While it reads like a lot, several of these look to be the same type of rolls. I was kind of wondering that too. I was seeing some, that it seemed like in this first pass, there was some, like when we were talking about the different types of mastery and things like that, I was wondering, are these the same kinds of tables? Let's see. Micah responding to Trey says, yeah, especially with lots of info defined about being common in tabletop RPGs, but needs to be defined here for people who haven't played tabletop RPGs before. Let's see. Okay, multiple check penalty. Check and save outcomes. Okay, when a creature rolls a 20 on a d20, the check or save gains a critical success. Moreover, when a creature rolls a 1 on the d20, the check or save suffers from critical failure. You know, we looked a little bit at what is it that MCDM is doing? So we got 2 major. Oh, by the way, I did get the notification that my Knave has shipped, and we were looking at Knave on this channel. So the Knave material has shipped. I gotta get back to some way to be able to do this every day. We used to do the morning grind every day, and really, there's so many things to talk about that I really need to figure out a way to get back to that, because we got Knave incoming. So apparently, my Kickstarter awards have shipped. So I know probably a lot of you have received the same kind of notification. We got MCDM doing his thing. That was the backer kit launch, right? And now we've got DC20 doing its thing as well. So that's, especially with DC20 and MCDM, trying to compare how these games go. Like I said, I liked a lot of the videos I was watching about game design philosophy from the Dungeon Coach. And we looked a little bit at MCDM. So Rule of Cool says this is so clunky. Well, Micah says a lot of tabletop RPGs have clunky wording in their alphas and early betas. Mike says, like all systems, if once you get used to it, it goes quickly. See, Trey says, okay, we've got to talk about this. We got to get to this. We'll find it down here. I love the mana stamina system for burnable resources for spells and maneuvers, so I can run musketeers versus monsters and have warrior types be different than barbarians. Micah nods heads. Its phrasing may be clunky in some areas, but once you grasp it, it's fairly intuitive, since many mechanics function similar to each other and to mechanics from popular tabletop RPGs. MCDM went with a 2d10 system. I can't remember. Time for a little knave action in the Geekverse. Yeah, I mean, I liked its original. Or is it 2d6? It may be 2d6. Yeah, you're right. It may be d6s. I'm kind of remembering that now. The fireball example. But see, I also wonder how often that comes up. Like, I mean, that's an example about what happens. That didn't give me an example of how, like, why. It didn't tell me, like, why that situation comes up. I'm rolling against a bunch of goblins. I'm going to have advantage against some. I'm going to have disadvantage against others. How common is that in order to make all of these rolls? Like, is it that one goblin's behind cover? It didn't give me a reason why. Like, one goblin is behind cover. And is that why I've got disadvantage against that goblin? Or, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. How often does that come up? Or is that just an example of, hey, in a situation where you've got advantage or disadvantage, you're rolling against a group and you've got advantage versus some and you've got disadvantage versus other. Here's how you would resolve it. How often does that come up at the table? I don't know. Hey, George. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. Hey, we should do some tips for everybody who we're seeing in the chat. So Rule of Cool, George here. We should, if you are new in the chat here, we should take a sip to you. So let's see. Rule of Cool. Here you go. George, here's to you. Are we seeing any other new people here in the chat? We need to take a sip in their honor if we do. So you can George says you can basically buy advantage with action points. Okay. The GM wouldn't necessarily need to roll each separately, but each creature on its own turn trying to resist an ongoing effect needs to roll each time to try to resist it at growing disadvantage. Okay, so we do have critical success and critical failure. Attack checks and spell checks. Attack and spell checks. When a creature gains critical success on an attack check or spell check that deals damage, the attack is considered a critical hit. So we got to look that up. Automatically hits and deals +2 damage. Okay, so that's it. So an auto hit and +2 damage. If it's an attack check or spell check that doesn't deal damage, the check automatically succeeds even if the result would normally fail. Critical failures. We do have critical failures. Critical failure on attack check. When a creature suffers a critical failure on an attack check that deals damage, the attack automatically misses even if the result would normally hit. If it's an attack check that doesn't deal damage, the check automatically fails if the result would, even if the check would normally succeed. If it's an attack check that doesn't deal damage, the check automatically fails. Okay. So you're not hitting yourself. You don't have to roll an attack against yourself on a critical failure, right? Okay. So just one is a miss. Okay. Spell checks. It fails to cast. When a critical failure happens, the AP and MP spent is lost, but any other resources such as arcane points, sorcery points, or material points are not spent. DC tip. For critical failures, the GM could change the condition to hindered. Your next attack check has disadvantage instead of exposed at their discretion. So an attack and spell checks. A creature that suffers a critical failure on an attack check. Oh, this is for both attacks and spells. You become exposed. Attack checks made against you have advantage until the end of next turn. We are working in an environment where we have degrees of success and failure. We do have that. Micah says it encourages a creature that really, really wants an effect to spend action points. This decreases the feeling of aggravation toward legendary resistances, because if a creature has to use action points to stop an effect, it can't do as much on that turn. Every +5 increases the success. Now, see, this is something I got to think about, because how do we do this elegantly? Let's see what kind of level of elegance we have here. So degrees of success and failure. If a creature succeeds on a check or save by 5 or more, they may gain additional benefits beyond those of a normal success. The check or save will include a success statement, such as success, success 5, success 10, or success 5. If the success statement says success, the creature gains the listed benefit if the result of the check or save is equal to or higher than the opposing DC check or save. Success 5. If a success statement says success, each 5, the creature gains the listed benefit for each 5 result, this is each 5, of the check or save that is above the opposing DC check or save. Unless stated otherwise, the creature can gain the additional benefit multiple times. So, for example, a spell pushes a target back 3 spaces on a successful spell check, but also includes the following success statement. Success, each 5 plus 1 space. That means that each 5 points the spell check's result is above the opposing DC, they are pushed back another space. Gotcha. If a success statement says success 5, the creature gains the listed benefit when they succeed by 5 or more on the opposing DC check or save. Moreover, if the success statement says success 10, they gain that benefit as well. This can continue to the success 15 and further. So, for instance, a spell that increases a creature's speed by 1 on a successful spell check, but has the following success statements. Success 5, ignore difficult terrain, and success 10, immune to slowed. That means the creature's speed is increased by 1 and ignores difficult terrain if its spell check is 5 above the spell's DC, and the creature is also immune to the slowed condition if its spell check is 10 above the spell's DC. Okay. I don't know that I've seen that elsewhere, so okay. Degrees of failure. Okay, so we're mirroring this in failure, failure 5, failure 10, and failure 5. Failure each 5. Okay, so we're mirroring that on the other side. Attack and defense. Attacks. When a creature makes an attack, it can do so by choosing to target a target within the attack's range, melee or ranged, and by making a check. How the check is resolved is determined by its type and range. There are 2 types of attacks, martial and spell. George says the +5 and +10, at least for attacks, have names heavy and brutal. Oh, I think I saw something about heavy and brutal on the character sheet. Did I not? Action points, resources. Oh, yeah. No, it's physical and defense. Heavy and brutal. Heavy and brutal is on the physical and mystical defense of this character sheet. And the stat block should tell you the roll needed to achieve a heavy or brutal hit. So, yeah, so this is something that's pre-calculated. Micah says, I mean, no, if you know what the amount required is, you can hit +5 on a calculator easily or have the sheet that scales with you if needed. It's far easier than many systems for determining math. So that would be what a monster would need to get a heavy hit against you. But presumably then on the monster sheet as well, you would know what you required to get a heavy or brutal hit against them. I think that's that may be like that may be the kind of thing we go with as well for something like Faded Edge. We'll have to see. Okay, we got martial attacks, we got spell attacks. Weapon ranges. The first number in the parentheses is the weapon's normal range, long range. You cannot make an attacks against the weapon's further than the long range. The short bow has a range of 20, 60, which means they can make attacks against targets between 1 and 20 spaces, but they can make attacks with disadvantage against targets between 21 and 60 spaces. Determining if an attack hits. Yeah, it depends. It depends on how often you have to do it, right? Yeah. And especially if you're like, okay, now how many, like, especially if you're talking about degrees of 5, and it depends on whether or not your DCs, is your DC always 5, 10, 15, 20, or can it be 17, 18, 16, 13, 7? But George says that is my understanding, at least how the stat block will be designed. I think we're going to need that. So when a creature makes an attack, the result of the attack check or spell check is compared to the target's defense to determine whether or not the attack hits the target. The attack hits if the result of the attack check is equal to or greater than the target's defense. Okay, attack hits if the result of the attack check is equal to or greater than the target's defense. A level 4 fighter's highest attribute is 3. That's the prime modifier, and their combat mastery is 2, 1/2 its level. When the fighter makes an attack check using a longsword, they roll d20 and add 5. If they roll a 10 on the d20, the result is 15. If the target's physical defense is 15 or lower, the attack hits. Otherwise, it misses. DM Steve-O. Oh, did DM Steve-O get a salute? So here is your salute, DM Steve-O. DM Steve-O says, I'm hoping DC will change spaces to feet. Not all of us play on battle maps. So this is the intention here is based on playing out on a battle map. I did notice that it said spaces. So that was 20 and 30. Or 20 and 60. What does that mean? That was spaces. That was spaces. You're very welcome. I don't want to miss anybody. If you're new here, I don't want to miss you. Creatures, defenses. Okay, so creatures have 2 types of defense, physical defense and mystical defense. Each type of defense has a value that represents how difficult it is to hit the target. When a creature makes an attack check or a spell check to attempt to deal damage to a target, the creature's check is compared against the target's defense to determine if the attack hits. Okay, physical defense formula, base of 8. This is determined by base defense, combat mastery, agility, base armor bonus, and if they're wielding a shield. Base of 8. Each character starts off with a PD of 8. That's physical defense of 8, which is what a typical commoner's PD would be. Combat mastery. The character adds its combat mastery to account for how experienced it is at protecting itself from danger in combat. Unless a character has mastery in heavy armor, it doesn't add its combat mastery to its PD while wearing heavy armor. Agility, a character adds its agility to its PD to account for how well it can dodge attacks, as well as an armor bonus. The armor bonus for novice armor level is +1. Character wearing a shield adds the shield's bonus granted to its physical defense. Mystical defense, base of 8, combat mastery, ability score. Okay, now we do have damage reduction. Damage reduction, DR, reduces the damage of an attack check or spell check that targets the creature's defense. The amount reduced is equal to the DR value, minimum of 0. A heavy hit, 5 over defense, a brutal hit, 10 over defense, or critical hit, natural 20, bypasses DR and deals full damage. Okay, so this reduces, the amount reduced is equal to the DR value, minimum 0. Okay. A heavy hit and brutal hit, heavy hit, brutal hit, and critical hit bypass DR. There are two types of damage reduction, physical and mystical. So a creature makes an attack check to hit a target with a PD of 10. The result of their attack checks is 12, which hits the target. The target has a PDR of 3, reducing the damage taken by 3. Alternatively, if the result of the attack check was 15, it would be 5 over the target's PD of 10, making it a heavy hit. In this scenario, the PDR is bypassed and does not reduce the hit. I see talking about in the chat what type of system should be used. Measurement system. So, okay, we got health points. We got HP. The stronger the creature, the more HP it generally has, signifying the greater difficulty in defeating it. A commoner has 4 hit points. A mastiff has 3 HP. A cat has 2, and a rat has 1. All right, there you go. DC tip. Most damage a creature takes is non-lethal and just wears them down until they get closer and closer to death's door. Lighter hits might graze you, while bigger hits will knock you off your feet. The description and role play of how damage is taken can change depending on its source and situation, but health points represent how much of a beating you can take before you die. Health points at first level. A PC has a number of health points equal to 6, plus a character's level plus might. A PC might be able to gain additional HP from ancestry or class. So a PC starts at the base of 6 hit points, then adds their character level, which is 1 HP at level 1. Using standard array to get your attributes, the highest starting might you can have is +3. Before considering any bonuses granted by ancestry traits or class features, starting HP, the highest starting HP a PC can have is 10. 6 plus 1 plus 3, and the lowest is 5. 6 plus 1, -2. Certain ancestries and classes grant additional HP. For example, the Giant-born ancestry grants additional +1, and the fighter class grants an additional +1 as well. Make sure you check each of these categories as you level to keep your maximum HP updated. You basically get 1 HP every time you level up, plus 1 more each time you gain might. You might also get additional HP from talents or features you choose. Okay. Health thresholds. Now, okay, I'm also kind of like this kind of thing. I like health thresholds here. Okay. Oh, that's exactly what I just said. Bacon Gaming says, reading just a bit ahead, I like the idea of health thresholds, but I need to consider it further to really render a verdict. It's definitely a step in the right direction, though. Still Mongoose says, so unifying a mechanic for physical and magical attack defense. Okay, so health thresholds. Certain game mechanics affect creatures while their current HP is within certain thresholds. Bloodied, HP is equal to or lower than 1/2 its HP maximum. Well-bloodied, HP is equal to or lower than 1/4. And these need to be pre-calculated. Death's Door, HP is equal to or lower than 0 HP. A creature's death door threshold is equal to 0 minus its prime modifier. If a creature is on death's door, it is still considered to be bloodied and well-bloodied because their HP is still below half their maximum bloodied and 1/4 their maximum well-bloodied. So, for example, a creature with a maximum HP of 8 is considered bloodied when his HP is 4 or lower. Like, how are we supposed to be rounding this? Does that matter? Well-bloodied when the HP is 2 or lower, and on death's door when the HP is 0 or lower. If its prime modifier is 3, the creature's death threshold is -3 HP. That creature dies if its HP is ever reduced to -3 or lower. What happens when you're on death's door? When you're reduced to 0 HP or lower, you suffer the following effects. Exhaustion. You immediately gain exhaustion 1. Action point limit. You can't spend more than 1 action point until the end of the next turn, until you're restored to 1 HP or higher. Concentration. You can't concentrate. Death saves. At the end of each of your turns, make a death save. Failure, you take 1 true damage. 1 true damage. Capital T, 1 true damage. Critical failure, you fall unconscious and you're restored to 1 HP or higher. Critical success, you're restored to 1 HP. Making death saves. When a creature makes a death save, roll D20. If the result is 10 or higher, it succeeds its save. A creature makes death saves until it's restored to 1 HP or higher, becomes stabilized, or dies. What is a true damage? Did we miss that? You gain 1 true damage. I feel like that's something I should have read. Stabilized. A creature takes the medicine action and succeeds on a DC 10 medicine check, can stabilize a creature on death's door. A stabilized creature does not make death saves while on death's door. A creature remains stabilized until it's restored to 1 HP or takes damage. Continuous damage. Continuous damage, like bleeding and burning, does not affect your HP while on death's door. You still have these conditions on you, but they don't deal damage unless you're above 0 HP. When combat ends, any creature on death's door must immediately make a death save. They repeat this death save every 12 seconds. Is that 12 seconds in game or 12 seconds at the table? You need to repeat this death save every 12 seconds until they become stabilized or restored to 1 HP or higher or die. I guess there's some section on tracking time here. Steel Mongoose says, so much of what this guy is doing reflects my design choices and my own stuff. It's interesting to see it applied to D&D. Oh, DM Stevo says, everything in DC 20 rounds up. And he also says, true damage is damage that can't be reduced by any means. Micah says, generally rounding up favors players the most, but in the long run, that's a good thing in my opinion. Steel Mongoose says, I'm not sure how necessary granular health thresholds are when HP is kept so low. Now, we're not talking about computing health thresholds based on 50, 60, or 80 HP, right? How much damage do things do? Each round is 12 seconds. Okay, so there we go. I figured it was something like that. Ezekiel says, rounding shouldn't matter. Even if the thresholds itself is a decimal value, the actual HP of the creature will be either be above or below that. Yes. See, I was wondering about that. How much damage do weapons do? Most weapons do 1, 2, or 3 damage. And then the heavy or brutal adds 1. I kind of thought, since we were using smaller numbers of hit points, that we would have something like that. Ezekiel, listen. This here's to you. Monsters and NPCs normally die when they're reduced to 0. However, the game master can choose to implement Death's Door on special enemies. When a PC is reduced to 0 HP, they're on Death's Door and fighting for their life. This is represented how the player wants to describe the state looking for them. They are not unconscious. They're in a heavily weakened state, about to die if something is not done soon. They could be prone, crawling on the ground, holding themselves up with their sword, or spitting out blood as they hold on for dear life. If your death threshold is -3 HP and you take a large enough hit that reduces it to -3 or lower, you're instantly dead. If you have 1 HP and take 4 damage, you die. This means that HP should avoid getting the low HP. This means that PCs should avoid getting to low HP against fearsome enemies at all costs. They should use healing magic, class features, spend AP defensively, and use consumables to avoid being at low HP, like they should be doing anyway. I like that. I like that. Okay, degrees of damage. I mean, there is a lot that's happening here that I like. It's interesting that we've talked about some of these things. So a brutal hit with a weapon that did 3 damage would be a total of 5. And if it was a crit, that would be double. I think the coach mentioned in one of the videos that 12 has been the highest damage he has seen in a playtest. I like keeping these numbers lower. I do. Or maybe it was 14, but okay. Attack and spell checks that deal damage have a base amount of damage that deal to their target on a successful check. Attack checks and spell checks have a base amount of damage they deal. The value is listed alongside the weapon or in the spell's description. If the check beats the target's defense by 5 or more, the target takes an extra damage and may suffer additional effects. Hit and miss. When you make an attack check, hit success. Each 5. This is an each 5. Hit success. If an attack deals +1 damage for each 5 result of the check is above the target's defense. If the result of the check is 5 or more above the target's defense, it is considered a heavy hit. If the result is 10 or more above the target's defense, it's considered a brutal hit. The brutal hits are considered heavy hits for the purposes of effects that trigger on a heavy hit. Heavy hits are 5 or over. Brutal hits are 10 or over. But if a character ever manages to get 15 on a target's defense, I call this beyond brutal. Then I count by 5 to see how many +1 damage bonuses they get. I mean, I like that. I like that. Let's see. Critical hits. When you roll a 20 on a DC if you roll a 20 on a D20 for an attack, it's considered a critical hit. A critical hit automatically hits the target, bypasses damage reduction, and deals an additional +2 damage. An attack can score a critical hit without the result of the check being 5 or more above the target's defense. When this happens, the check is considered a critical hit, and the target simply takes the base damage +2. But this scenario is rare. A critical hit will normally result in a check that's 5 or even 10 above the target's defense, causing the target to take +2 damage from the critical hit, +1 damage for each 5. The result is higher than the defense. Okay, this is the damage calculation sidebar. Let's see. BGD says 12,000 people have backed this game for a little more than $100 a piece. Aside from some clever monkeying with the action economy, I'm having trouble seeing how this is a $1 million game instead of a reflavoring of the crunch from D&D 3.5. Still, Mongoose says, I'm a first-day backer. I love what he's doing, and Alan seems like good people. We're going to get to the action economy here. This damage system does seem like the direction we're kind of going with Fated Edge. We will see. Okay, so this is a way, the damage calculation sidebar. This is a way for both players and game masters to add up their damage in a way that's simple and quick. It can get confusing if you're trying to see how much damage you did and you're randomly adding things together and trying to find the total. Using an approach like this can help. Okay, this I agree. This could possibly be the downside of this. So what are they doing? Once you hit with an attack, you will need to tell the GM how much damage your attack did. The same thing is true for a GM adding up damage from their attack. First, you add up the damage from your attack to get a single number. Then you say that number and apply any kind of resistance or damage reduction the target has. Adding damage order. So start with the base damage of the attack, add up any plus damage from heavy hits, brutal hits, or higher, and critical hits. Add any +1 plus damage from action points spent, and add plus damage from passives. So he basically says, starting at the base damage is a great foundation, and getting into heavy hits and higher out of their way first is nice. You'll get better at all the +5s math over time. Then you add any damage gained by spending AP and then passives. This creates a great checkpoint system for you to mentally navigate and keep things simple and quick. Now, George says, it feels to me more like a mix between 5e and Pathfinder 2, which seems like a good space to me. And we went over a lot of Pathfinder 2, especially with regard to the action economy. Like, we were taking a look at Pathfinder. We were getting into that here on this channel, Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and talking about the actions and the reactions and things like that. And then it was shortly after we did that it was brought to our attention that, okay, we should take a look at the action economy here. And I kind of remember in DC 20, and I kind of remember being like, well, the action economy that's in this seems like a natural progression from Pathfinder 2, if I recall. That's how I think it was. That's how I think that was done. So as an example here, a rogue. You think the change from the traditional D20 is significant? Here? A rogue attacks a beast with his short sword. We start off with a base damage of 2. We get a brutal hit and gain +2 damage on the hit. 2 + 2 = 4. The creature has a condition on them which increases the damage by 1 because of their cheap shot class feature. They also got hit by the target this round and gain the weapon passive. They also got hit by the target this round and gain the weapon passive of the sword of +1. Their total damage is now 6. 2 base +2 brutal +1 cheap shot +1 sword passive equals 6 total. There are 14 damage types. There is damage reduction, but heavy hits and brutal and critical bypass that. I wonder why. Resistance. Okay, and vulnerability to different damage types. Okay, makes sense. When 2 or more creatures share damage, divide the total damage by the number of creatures. Combat resources, action points. Okay. Yeah, Pathfinder 2 still limits people to 1 off-turn action, and DC 20 would allow you to spend all of your actions off-turn to help allies or limit enemies. Right. And I liked that, I think. I know. I'm a big fan of that, too. I'm a fan of that, too, Mike. Mike says, I like the HP is low. I've never been a fan of bloated HP totals. Seems the only prolonged combat rather than making it more fun. I agree. Micah says, and yes, as George says, the off-action spending of action is probably off-turn. Is something very useful for someone who wants to be the protector or someone who enhances more than direct martial or spell combat. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Let's keep going here. You have action points, AP, which you can spend in combat. You can spend AP on actions, resources, or features such as maneuvers, cantrip, enhancements, class features, or ancestry features. Your action point maximum is 4. Gaining AP. At the start of combat, each creature gains a number of action points equal to its AP maximum. Once an action point is spent, it can't ever be used again until it's regained. Regaining HP. You regain all spent action points when your turn ends. Remember, you get all of your AP back at the end of your turn, so make sure you spend all of your AP before your turn ends. Okay, it says combat in DC 20 is a time when PCs are pushed to their absolute limit, a time when they rise to the occasion, often surprising themselves with what they're capable of doing. The way this is represented mechanically is by allowing players to spend AP in order to apply stacking advantages to significant rolls. Okay, players spend AP to apply stacking advantage to significant rolls made during the most dire situations. This perfectly reflects real-life experiences of a mother's strength to rescue her child from a car or an athlete's propensity for performing best during the real event instead of in practice. There are many ways to justify why PCs are more capable and reliable within the system. Adrenaline coursing through their system, pressing to succeed as failure isn't an option, or even excitement and other endorphins fueled by their performance or putting them in a state of flow. Regardless of which these you choose to substantiate this change in success rate, there's one more consideration you must keep in mind. DC 20 is a game with mechanics and rules designed to facilitate epic stories and fun moments around the table. Some of these mechanics, like having a higher chance of success to pick a lock in combat, come with a significantly higher risk of failure. Failure to pick a lock outside of combat results in wasted time, repeated attempts, and generally just wasting your time until you either succeed, give up, or get past it some other way. Failing to pick the lock within combat often comes at the cost of assisting your allies in winning the combat. There are a number of moments that PCs might be expected to make checks during combat in DC 20 to aid the victory conditions or ease combat. These actions are encouraged and facilitated by the 1 AP to grant yourself advantage rule of combat. Finally, keep in mind that casting spells outside of combat is already accounted for and that you reduce the cost of the spells outside of combat. The only time this benefit is not felt is at levels 1 and 2, which I also feel is fine since we're talking about novice spellcasters, so it makes sense these low-powered spellcasters aren't able to take advantage of this MP reduction, since they still have to spend a minimum of 1 HP. To those who find these explanations, both narrative and mechanical, unsatisfactory, I offer the following simple adjustment. Any check made during combat has its DC increased by 5. This is still the playtest, and this concept of the game will continue to be monitored and polished, but I hope this empowers our GMs to run the game smoothly. I remember we liked that too. Bacon Gaming says, I also really remember liking the Warhammer Fantasy wound system, but I need to refresh my memory on it before speed. I would have to refresh my memory as well. Let's see. Mana points. We got something called grit points over here. Stamina points. Martial PCs have stamina points, which can be spent on techniques on class features. Stamina points should only be tracked when you're in high-stress situations like combat. Grit points. Characters with high charisma attributes have a strong force of will and ability to influence and impact others around them, especially their friends and allies. Grit points represent a character being able to enact that ability on themselves or allies. Grit points. You gain a number of grit points equal to 2 plus your charisma. If your charisma is negative, then your total grit points is reduced by the same amount. Spending grit points. So I guess this is part of, we talked about how much of a dump stat is charisma. So charisma is what gets you these grit points. Bearing damage. When you're hit by an attack, you spend 1 grit point to reduce the damage you take by 1. Save resolve. When you are a creature that you can see or hear you makes a save, you can spend 1 grit point as a reaction to grant the creature advantage on the save. Actions and reactions. Let's go briefly back up to I think that's the next section I want to do, but let's see. Let's take a look at our table of contents here. We've been through checks and saves. Like, where are we going here? Health and death's door, we did that. Damage, we did that. Combat resources, we were looking at that. So actions and reactions, maneuvers, techniques, and then spell casting. Let's take a look at actions and reactions. To understand our action economy. Trey says, I've always liked wounds more than HP, only because someone wounded would have a harder time attacking at the same level as they did before they were wounded. Ideally, I would like to have wounds in Fated Edge. Looking forward to getting back to that. I kind of think that after the Cultist RPG is done, the next task should be to work on the Fated Edge and do it as an adventure system. The Fated Edge adventure system. So I kind of think that's where we're going to be going here. I need more time to sit and work. But after, so Cultist RPG and its associated Kickstarter. But then I think we really need over here a solid system for all of our different worlds. And so I think working on Fated Edge next would be the way to go. All right, let's take a look at actions and reactions. Actions. Anything you spend an action point on is considered an action. I always wonder about phraseology like that. Anything that you spend action points on is considered an action. Is it just anything you spend an action point on? Anything you spend an action point on is an action. Is it considered an action or is it an action? minor point. Okay, minor actions. Once per turn, you can perform up to 2 of the following actions without spending AP. You can't take additional actions, such as the attack action, between these 2 actions. So once per turn, you can perform up to 2 of the following actions without spending AP. You can't take additional actions between these 2 actions. Open or close a door, grab or release an item, retrieve or stow an item, draw a sheath, a weapon, equip or unequip a shield. Additional minor actions, you can spend 1 AP to perform additional minor actions. So here are our action types. Attack, move, disengage, dodge, grapple, help, hide, object, shove, spell, action. Attack, spend 1 AP to make an attack, disarm. Grapple, ending a grapple. We got information on that. Shove, 1 AP to shove. Tackle, if you move at least 2 spaces in a straight line, you can spend 1 AP to attempt to tackle a creature that is your size or smaller. Defensive actions, you can spend 1 AP to impose disadvantage on opportunity attacks made against you until the start of the next turn. Dodge, you can spend 1 AP. So this is off-turn expenditures, right? You can spend 1 AP to impose disadvantage on the next attack or grapple made against you before the start of your next turn. So I do like this, and I would like to play this. Like, maybe we got to get back to the online coffee shop. It would be great if there were a way to experiment with this. There's so many games to play. I was thinking about the philosophy of how do you keep players engaged, because I think that's a really important thing at the table, and arguably something that happens with D&D, or that does not happen with D&D, when players are taking a long time to make turns and they come around the table, and it's even possible for your turn to go by quickly. What do? This is one answer to allow players to be able to do more stuff on not their turn. This is one answer. Another answer is to make sure that on a player's turn, they do something very direct and easy and fast, and you do a lot of turns. Micah says there are some VTT implementations currently out for being able to play around with it currently. Hey, PH, good to see you. Trey says, please make it possible to play in a time period beyond D&D Tolkien time period. So many games are stuck in the medieval period. Yeah, I think that it needs to. Because not all of the worlds that we've been talking about are medieval. Yeah, I kind of think that's the way we're doing. Like the Warhammer Quest. We'll take a look. We'll take a deep dive into Warhammer Quest here. But it seems like Warhammer Quest had this system where you have the adventure system that's at the tabletop, which is more like a board game, and then it's expanded with its own RPG book. So I kind of think that would be a good way to go with this. Start with the adventure system, which is on the table, easy to see, very direct, and then expand that like was done with Warhammer Quest with its own with the RPG kind of expansion. We were working on, like, what exactly are we working on? That seems like a good way to go about it, I think. Death Spiral. Yeah, so does this game have it? This game has different wound thresholds. Do you get into a death spiral? Micah says, off turn and fast turns, but longer rounds with multiple turns in a round is what I went with. Okay, you can attempt to hide as well. Utility actions, move. You can spend 1 AP to move up to your speed in squares, default 5. You choose where to move and can break up your movement by moving before or after taking different actions. You can end your turn to space. You can't end your turn to space occupied by another creature. A creature with 4 AP can make the move action to move 1 space, take the attack action, move 1 space again, 2 total spaces, Take the attack action again, and then move 2 spaces again, total 4 spaces. Help, you can spend 1 AP to grant a creature D8 help die that lasts until the start of their next turn. Upon granting the help die, you must declare which character you're helping and what type of check you'll be adding it to. Object. Object. Object, you can spend 1 AP to perform one of the following object interactions. 1 AP to cast a spell. Analyze creature. You can spend 1 AP to attempt to recall or discern some information about a creature you can see or hear. Make a DC 10 knowledge check. If so, you learn 1 stat about the creature. Calm animal. Combat insight. You can spend 1 AP to attempt to discern the course of actions a creature might take on its next turn. Make an insight check contested at the target's trickery or influence check. Conceal, feint. Oh, we do have feint. You can spend 1 AP to make a trickery check contested by the target's insight check. Intimidate, investigate, jump. All of these are 1 HP. You can search. You can spend 1 AP to attempt to locate 1 or more hidden creatures or concealed objects within your line of sight. It's also a lot of stuff to like, okay, what can I do? Here's the list of stuff. And remember, you can do them on not your turn. I would like to try it. I would definitely like to try it. Yeah, you do have split, move, and fire here. Well, actually, on my side over here, of course, we're streaming in several different places. On my side over here, I see that we've got 40 people watching. But yes, if you are here, please do hit the like button on whichever particular platform you happen to be watching. Please do hit the like button and subscribe. If you hit if you hit the like button on YouTube here, YouTube might push this out to other people who would like to be watching this and are just sitting out there on YouTube right now and would love to be here, but they don't know about it. Okay, let's see. So spells, spell duel opportunity. We do types of reactions. Advanced. This was advanced actions. Oh, did I skip past something? I guess I did accidentally. Search. Yeah. So down here we have advanced actions, held actions, declaring the trigger and so forth. Reactions. Reactions are actions a character can take during another creature's turn. A creature can't take a reaction on their own turn unless the reaction allows them to do so in response to another creature's reaction. Reactions are not affected by the multiple check penalty. So a creature can take a reaction on another creature's turn. So I guess actually everything we just read could not be done as a reaction. Taking a reaction. So there's a specific list of things that you can do on other people's turn. A creature can take a reaction on another creature's turn, provided it meets the requirements to do so. These requirements to take a reaction are listed on the reaction's prerequisite and trigger statements. You can only take 1 reaction per trigger. Example 1, when a creature leaves a martial PC's reach, they would only be able to make 1 opportunity attack against the creature. They could still spend AP to perform attack maneuvers with their opportunity attack. Example 2, when an attack is made within 1 space of a martial PC, the PC could take the parry maneuver against the attack. First trigger. If the attack also hits second trigger, the PC could take the protection maneuver and share the damage with the target. Reaction requirements, spending, types of reactions, opportunity attack. So the trigger is a creature you see within your melee range uses its movement to leave your melee range, standing up from prone, picking an item up off the ground, or takes the object action. Reaction, you spend 1 AP and make an attack check with an unarmed strike or melee weapon that you're wielding against the provoking creature. You can spend additional AP to gain advantage or to perform maneuvers with the attack. I mean, there's something I really like about this. We'll just have to see. Oh, Trey says, Click the like button, fight the YouTube algorithm. I've noticed I no longer get notified when new videos release. I post about it in the Discord server. Let me post the Ravenkeep Discord server again. I'll post the link there. And I'm considering, I'm still thinking about things that maybe we need, like the local, so we can do the live streaming there. Ravenkeep Discord, because I know, the problem is, if you want to know when we're doing stuff, how do you know? BGD asks, what does this game have for support for bringing foes, threats, monsters to the table? If you're talking about stats, I do see, we're not going to get a chance to look at this today. I'm going to have to go in a few minutes here. But there is part of this is the 0.7 alpha, and there is also that you can download as part of that the Monster Homebrew Guide. So that's several pages long. It's not this one. It's not as long as this thing we're looking at right now, but there are several pages about the Monster Homebrew Guide in here. Now, see, I also I spend a lot of time, of course, I spend a lot of time on YouTube anyway, but I always go to my subscription tab. I hang out in my subscription tab a lot. Micah says, I still see every video I'm subscribed to from my subscriptions page. I only hit notify on some of the channels, but I always see all subscription videos in that tab. But I think a lot of people never go to their subscriptions. I think they just stay on the home tab. I think. And if you just stay on the home tab, you're putting yourself in YouTube's hands. But yes, if you go to the subscription tab, that's mainly where I hang out. See, PH says, weapon damage is static, but the amount of stuff you can do, like using more than one AP, makes it dynamic. That's what Trey says, guilty. Yeah. I mean, I like this. I think it's interesting, when we see, convergent kinds of design kinds of things. Because, I mean, he clearly talks about and addresses things that we've been addressing on this channel as well. And I like it. I like the way that some things are being implemented here. So we'll have to try. Opportunity attack, spell duel. Oh, we got wild magic here, people. We got wild magic. Wait, so I wanted some more reactions. Types of reactions. That wasn't a whole lot. Maneuvers. Things like extend attack, power attack. You deal +1 damage with the attack. Maneuver. Extend your melee range by 1 space. Save maneuvers. Weapon maneuvers. Taunt, swap, chained, cross. So weapon maneuvers, axe, bow. Okay, there is a lot. Okay, so what is the rest of this? I mean, we're only about a third of the way through this book. So spell casting. I guess there's a lot of information on spells in this book. Advanced spell casting. Okay, here's starting combat. Here's where it says 1 round of combat equals 12 seconds. Time in combat. Initiative. Okay, so there's more stuff to look at. Okay, and there's a lot of stuff to consider here. All right, we've been going for about 1 hour and 45 minutes here. So I don't know. What do you think about this? Is this worth returning to? Like I said, we'll probably be doing game design on Sunday. I've got to figure out a way how to get back doing the morning grind to the daily on the daily, so we can talk about more stuff. What do you think? Do you think this is worth looking at more? I mean, I'm glad that I did this. I've been meaning to take a look at this for quite some time and doing it live. So thank you to the Dungeon Coach for putting this out free now that the Kickstarter has launched. So I understand, watched several videos, but now I kind of understand the direction this is going. I would like to play. Yeah, well, didn't 12 seconds is a long time. Wasn't 10 seconds in the original Dungeons and Dragons? Or not, maybe not the original, but AD&D. Wasn't it 10? Bacon says, man, people die in real combat in less than 3 seconds, sometimes less than 1. 12 seconds is way too long. But how much does that matter? In a game when we're talking about rounds like this. And of course, GURPS goes second by second, but it takes a long time to roll to adjudicate a GURPS round. You're like, okay, that was 3 seconds worth of time. Trey says most real world combat is died under 6 seconds. Think this is worth continuing? All right. We will see how this gets worked in. There's so much to do. I was also asking the Discord server, it's like, hey, House of the Dragon Season 2 is coming up. We could talk about that on Table Talk. I'm really excited about watching House of the Dragon. George says he being the dungeon coach, may have used Bob World Builder's videos showing what can and can't be done in 6 seconds. I don't know that I've ever watched those videos, but I know I see some of them come up from time to time. All right. Oh, it was 1 minute in AD&D. There was a turn and a round and something like that. Yeah, you were fighting for a long time, actually. But I don't know that it matters. If there are turns and everything's, it's all, it's all an abstraction. All right. Well, I am out of here. I'm going to go try to do a whole bunch of work today. So I will see everybody in the Discord server. Thank you very much for being here with me. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. I hope you did too. I hope you appreciated the discussion. You guys in the chat are always fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. And if you're watching on replay, thank you so much for watching on replay. I'll be reading comments and things. If you have additional comments, put them down below. Please do like the stream, and I would love to have you subscribe to the channel so that you will be here with us in the morning a lot more. So I will see you guys later. Enjoy yourself. Go forth. Be constructive. Be creative. And grind on. Later.